backdoor access. A backdoor is a piece of software installed by a hacker that allows them to return later and connect to the computer without going through the normal authentication process. Some commercial applications inadvertently include backdoors because programmers forget to remove them before they release to market. In many cases, the program is listening on a specific port, and when attempting to connect to that port, the attacker is allowed to connect without authentication. An example is Back Orifice 2000 BO2K, an application level Trojan horse used to give an attacker backdoor network access. ARP issues. ARP cache poisoning, usually a man-in-the-middle attack, was discussed earlier in this section. ARP cache poisoning. Banner grabbing OUI. Banners are messages that are configured on some devices, routers, switches and servers, and appear under certain conditions, such as when someone is presented with a login screen upon making a connection, or when an error is encountered. These messages can impart information that can be used during the discovery phase of the hacking process. It may reveal the operating system or the version of firmware. Banner grabbing is a process of connecting to the device using protocols such as Telnet, SMTP or HTTP, and then generating an error displaying the banner. Once the hacker discovers information contained in the banner, such as the operating system and its version, they can research weaknesses in the system. For this reason, any service not in use should be disabled to eliminate it as a source of connection. Domain local group configurations. In cases where computers are part of a domain, the domain members' computers will have both domain accounts and local accounts. Local accounts are thus only effective on the local machine and cannot be used to access the domain. However, there are default local accounts that exist on these computers that can be used to log in locally to the computer, thereby circumventing the domain login process. It's dangerous to leave some of these enabled, such as the local administrator account. While they cannot be deleted, it is possible to rename them or disable them. Jamming. Jamming is the process of sending out radio waves on the frequency used by a wireless link. It will have the effect of disconnecting all of the stations from the AP, at least while the jam signal is there. When used for that purpose, jamming could be considered a DOS attack. However, it is usually part of an evil twin attack when the hacker is attempting to get your wireless stations to connect to their access point. They will set the AP to the same SSID as your wireless network, but in a different channel frequency. When they jam the real frequency, it causes the stations to seek another frequency with the same SSID. There they will find the hacker's AP all too willing to allow their association. Misconfiguration issues. In many cases, security issues arise due to our own mistakes rather than the efforts of hackers. In the following sections, we'll take a look at, and in some cases review, some of the most misconfiguration errors and omissions. Misconfigured firewall. If the access control lists are misconfigured on a firewall, the damage will fall into one of three categories. Traffic is allowed that shouldn't be allowed. Traffic that should be allowed is blocked. No traffic is allowed at all. The first two problems are a matter of specifying the wrong traffic type in a permit or deny rule. Because in many cases the traffic type is specified in terms of a port number, it is critical to know the port numbers of the traffic you are dealing with. The last problem can either be a simple omission or a complete understanding of how ACLs work. At the end of every ACL is an implicit rule that blocks all traffic that has not been allowed by earlier rules in the rule set. This means that all ACLs should have a rule at the end that allows all traffic that should be allowed. An ACL with no permit statements will block all traffic. Misconfigured ACLs applications. Misconfigured applications can also cause issues. Web applications that do not perform proper input validation can allow for such as buffer overflows. They can also in some cases allow for commands to be executed on the web server. For this reason, web-based applications should undergo strict code review and fuzz testing. You should also ensure that all input is validated before it is accepted by the application. Open-close ports. As discussed in the section on misconfiguration of firewalls, destination services and applications are specified in a packet in terms of port number. When a device is open to receive a connection to a service or application, it is said to be listening on the corresponding port. Therefore, closing or disabling a port eliminates the possibility of a malicious user connecting to that port and leveraging any weakness that may be known to be present with that service. It is a standard device hardening practice to close any ports not required for the proper functioning of a device based on its role in the network. For example, a DNS server should have no open ports but port 53, which is used to service DNS. Unpatched Firmware OSS. The best defense against the majority of malware types and attack modes is to keep on all updates. This includes operating system patches, firmware and application updates. Many devices that fall prey to malware and attacks do so needlessly because a patch existed that would have prevented the attack. A formal update system should be in place to ensure that no updates fall through the cracks. Social engineering, phishing. Hackers are more sophisticated today than they were 10 years ago, but then again, so are network administrators. Because of today's sysadmins have secured the networks well enough to make it pretty tough for an outsider to gain access, hackers decide to try an easier route to gain information. They just ask the network users for it. Social engineering or phishing refers to the act of attempting to illegally obtain sensitive information by pretending to be a credible source. Common phishing tactics include sending emails, making phone calls, or even starting up a conversation in person. Some email phishing scams have made the news. In one case, bad guys sent out a mass email that was all dressed up to appear as though the message actually came from a real bank. The email said that the bank had an issue with one of its servers and now required you to confirm your user account information to verify that none of your data was lost. All you need to do was click on the link provided all you needed to do was click the link provided in the email, enter your information, and 512 chapter 14 network threats and mitigation, snap your identity when proof. If you possess a working brain and someone you didn't know phone and asked for your bank account number, you certainly wouldn't give it to them, right? No way, but the same request coming in the form of a really legitimate looking email seems more believable for some people. This has become a popular phishing tool notoriously used to separate people from anything from a few bucks to their entire identity. Be careful. Oh, and speaking of phone calls, let's just say you get a call to your desk at work from Joe in IT. He says he's noticed some unusual activity on your network account and wants to check it out. but for security purposes he needs your permission first. So he proceeds to confirm your login, and then he tells you to enter your password into the network tracker. He asks what's your password. To protect yourself from this one, all you need to do is confirm his information and verify it with your IT department before you give him any of your data. You know by now that just because Joe knows your login doesn't mean he's on top, doesn't mean he's on the up and up. Even if Joe hangs up on you, you should still report the call to IT. How did Joe get your login and telephone number? Remember network reconnaissance first, because company phone directories are often on the web. Getting your phone number was easy, even if it isn't published. Maybe Joe did some earlier phishing by calling one of your co-workers and pretending to be a colleague at another site, asking for your phone number. But what about your username? On most networks, your username is the same as your email address because it makes things easier for your sysadmin. This means that knowing that information is probably just a good guess on the hacker's part. Maybe Joe the hacker has gotten an email from someone at your company and knows what your email format is, and he may have some other information to help him figure out your network login. And even if the number on your caller ID when Joe called was an internal number, it doesn't mean a thing. Remember IP spoofing? Well, we can do that with phone numbers too. The golden rule is don't ever give any of your information to anyone else, to anyone you're not absolutely sure should have it. And if they are someone who should have it, they probably already do, and they shouldn't be contacting you for it. Understanding mitigation techniques. To be honest, I'm not going to go into detail about how to mitigate each and every one of the security threats I just talked about, not only because that will be outside the scope of this book, but also because the methods I'm going to teach you will truly protect you from being attacked in general. You will learn enough tricks to make all but the most determined bad guys give up on you and search for easier prey. Basically, think of this as a section on how to practice SafeNet. Safe networking techniques fall into three major categories: policies and procedures, training, patches and upgrades. But before we go there, let's cover some of those general defense techniques I just referred to. First, know that there are three main ways to detect an intruder and defend yourself against one. Active detection, which involves constantly scanning the network for possible break-ins. Passive detection, which involves logging all network events to a file. Proactive defense method, which involves using tools to shore up your network walls against attack. Active detection. Active detection is an analogous to a security guard walking the premise, rattling the doors to make sure they're locked, and checking for intruders and any unusual activity. Similarly, there's special network software that searches for hackers attempting known attack methods and scan for the kind of suspicious activity and weird network traffic that hackers leave behind as they travel over the network. Some sophisticated active systems go a step further and take action by doing things like shutting down the communication session a bad guy is using, as well as emailing or paging you. Some security packages will even go as far as trying to cripple the computer from which the hacker is attacking. Cisco's NetRanger, Memco's Session 1 and Snort are all forms of active intrusion detection software. Passive detection. Using video cameras is a good example of using a passive intrusion detection system. Their counterparts in networking are files that log events that occur on the network. Tripwire for Unix systems is one of the earliest programs of this variety. It identifies changes in files using checksums. Changes in files indicate that someone has accessed them. Passive detection systems work by examining files and data and then calculating the checksums for each. The checksums are stored in a log file so that if the sysadmin notices that a security breach has occurred on the network, they can access the log files to find clues about it. Proactive defense. A proactive defense is something you do or implement to ensure that your network is impenetrable. You can accomplish a lot through solid research and vigilant maintenance. You absolutely must stay current regarding any known security holes relevant to your type of network and devices that populate it. You can also use tools like the unfortunately dubbed Security Administrator tool for analysing networks, Satan, to find holes in your security walls and plug them with software patches. Clearly, before you patch a hole, you've got to know it's there, right? This is why I said it's important to stay current. Even better, stay a step ahead of the bad guys by knowing your enemy's strategy, because the war against hackers is ever evolving. As soon as one hole is patched, bad guys will search for and find another vulnerability to exploit. And because patches usually take some time to develop, you can lose your shirt to a hacker in the interim. This is a big reason I'm saying it's a better idea for you to know thy enemy than rely on patches and the like. Instant response. Often when an attack or security breach occurs in the network, valuable time and information are lost in the critical first minutes and hours after the incident occurs. In some cases, evidence is inadvertently destroyed, making prosecution of the offending party impossible. In other cases, attacks that could have been interrupted and prevented before damage occurs are allowed to continue. An incident response policy is designed to prevent this by establishing in advance the procedures that should be followed when an attack occurs. It may categorize instances in such a way that certain event types, such as an active port scan, may require a response such as disabling certain services within 10 minutes, while other events such as an attempt to access a file without proper credentials may only require a notation and follow-up in the next few days. The point is to establish these rules ahead of time and ensure that events are handled in a way that minimizes damage and preserves evidence. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing and subscribing. Thank you.